Before we get started, I want to share something with you. I created a free, still standing quiz online for anyone who has ever looked at their life and thought, well, this is definitely not how I pictured things going. Maybe you're in survival mode. Maybe you're rebuilding. Maybe you don't even know what mode you're in. And you've just gotten really good at saying, I'm fine. Well, you don't even know what's going to happen next, or even what next step to take. This quiz is perfect because it'll help you figure out where you are in the messy middle and what kind of support you can actually get to move forward. It's not fake positivity or fluffy inspirational stuff. It's just a little clarity when life feels confusing. You can take the free quiz at stepintomyshoeshere.com/quiz. You're not broken. You're just finding your footing in the chapter you didn't choose and where to move next. Who does this? I know that's not a polished question. And it's not soft and it's not dressed up for company. It is the kind of sentence that comes out of your mouth when your brain cannot find a more elegant way to process what someone actually did. Who does this? 4 months after placing her baby girl up for adoption, a teenage girl asked a very simple question. Was my baby placed in a loving family? That was it. That was the question. It wasn't unreasonable, dramatic, and it wasn't about asking to undo everything. Just the most human question an innocent teenager in the world could ask as she's trying to survive something that no teenager should have carried alone. And the answer that she received, it was not truth, and it was not compassion, and it was a sentence designed to slam the door shut forever. Before we begin, a gentle note that this episode includes some things that are very truth-telling and personal. This is a tender one, and it's honest. And while there will always be a little Di in the room trying to find some humor, because apparently I can't keep things normal, this is not a funny first episode. This is a truth-telling one. I hope you enjoy it. She was told, I'm sorry, but your baby girl died because you did not take care of her while you were carrying her. I want that to sit with you for a second. Not because I want to shock you, and not because pain should be turned into a headline, but because sometimes the truth of the story begins with naming the thing that should never have happened. The young teen asked if her baby daughter was being loved, and she was told that she was dead. And that baby girl was me. And then for decades, the paperwork that could have proved otherwise was sealed away like my own beginning was none of my business. Thank you, state of Ohio. But here's what I've learned. The truth may be delayed, buried or hidden, locked in some cabinet, or wrapped in someone else's fear, but it does not, and it did not, disappear. Because I'm here to tell you the story. Sometimes it waits until you're old enough and brave enough to find the answers. My whole life, I knew I was adopted. There was never a dramatic reveal, no movie scene, living room moment, troubling hands, and my parents saying, "We have to tell you something," while someone stared sadly into a coffee mug. I just knew it was part of my story from the beginning. Maybe my mom told me as soon as I arrived in her arms. I don't know. And because of the parents who raised me, I didn't grow up feeling thrown away in any shape or form. I grew up feeling chosen, and that my mom and dad wanted me, and they gave me my name, and they loved me, and they built an entire life around me. That part is absolutely true. But one thing does not erase another true thing. Being loved by a family who raised you does not mean you never wonder where you came from. And being grateful does not mean that you don't have questions. And being chosen does not mean the beginning of your story stops mattering. That's something that people don't always understand about adoption. They want it to be simple, and they want it to fit into one neat sentence. You were adopted, you were loved, end of story. Blah, blah, blah. But adoption is not just one sentence. It's a whole emotional filing cabinet. Some drawers are full of love, and some are full of gratitude, and some are full of paperwork, and some are even full of silence. Has the key on it that you can't get in, and it's locked by the state of Ohio for decades. For adoptees in Ohio, beginning in 1964 through 1996, original birth records were sealed for all that time. That meant there was no easy access to an original birth certificate. My original birth certificate, no names, no confirmations, and no simple path to the truth of your own beginning. Now, I'm sure that you're imagining if I had a birth certificate. Of course I did. My birth certificate had the name of my adopted parents. They were my legal guardians, my legal parents, and therefore that's what my birth certificate had shown and still does. So imagine that for a second. Your beginning exists on paper, but you can't have it. And your own name and your birth and your first chapters legally tucked away like it just belonged more in the system than to you. And that's a strange thing to carry, even when you're loved, because when you are loved, people just expect those questions to disappear politely. But questions don't just disappear because your life turned out well. My questions didn't. And there were times that I did not want to open that Pandora's box. I think that my mom would have helped me, but also I think that it would have hurt her a lot. And there are days that I wanted to know, and there are days that I didn't want to know. And not because I was ungrateful. And I didn't want to know because I was trying to replace anyone. And not because of the family who raised me and loved me was not enough. I wanted to know because the truth of the beginning is my beginning, and it's not a betrayal. It's information that your soul keeps asking until someone else finally lets you hold it. And then there was the sentence, the one that still makes the room go quiet inside me. 4 months after placing me for adoption, my biological mother asked whether her baby girl had been placed with a loving family. Again, she was 16. Hear how human that was. A teenager, after a life-altering decision, after separation from the baby, and whatever pressure and fear and grief that surrounded her in the moment, she still wondered if her baby was okay. Was she loved? That was the heart of the question. And instead of telling the truth, instead of offering even 1 ounce of compassion, someone told her the baby had died because she did not take care of herself while carrying her. Who does that? Honestly, who looks at a stranger carrying that kind of grief and decides that she needs is a lie wrapped in blame? Think about that. It was completely a lie and blaming my biological mom. There are moments when my usual sarcasm steps forward and ready to do this little tap dance, and then even sarcasm looks around and says, nope, this one is above my pay grade. Because that sentence was not just cruel, it was surgical. It cut off hope, questions. It turned love into punishment. It gave a teenager something impossible to grieve and made her believe that she had caused it. And I was alive. I wasn't gone, and it wasn't where the tragedy had ended. The baby, me, was placed into a loving family, and I was growing up. I was being loved, and I was learning to walk and talk and become myself. Okay, not at 4 months, but you get my point. And somewhere else, this young woman had been handed a lie about me that was so heavy, it could have crushed an entire part of her life. And that's the part that gets me. Not just the truth was hidden from me, the truth was also stolen from her. For years, that lie had somewhere to hide. And thank goodness, because if that woman that said that would have been alive now, I don't know what would have happened. But that's the thing about sealed records. They don't just protect privacy in theory. They can also protect silence. And they protect systems and people who make decisions without ever having to answer the teenager that grew up making those decisions. Okay, and yes, I know adoption records are complicated. I know there's a reason why people probably benefited from having these sealed. I know there's a conversation about privacy and birth parents and adoptive parents and laws and history and all of that stuff layered together. This is not me pretending that it's not simple. But when you're an adoptee, it's not abstract. It's your body and your birthday and your name and origin and your freaking medical history. And it's you looking in the mirror, missing pieces. You know there are people out there that look like you, walking around this earth that look like you. And for a long time, those pieces were not mine to even think about getting or receiving. Then good old March 2015 came, and Ohio opened access for adoptees born during those sealed record years to request their original birth certificate. And so I did. And let me tell you something, paperwork is not just paperwork when it has your beginning on it. It's not just a form or a document. It's a government record sitting in a file where someone has all your information. It is the first chapter of your life. And it's proof that before you know it, there was another room, another name, another story, another girl, a decision. There was grief and another version of you that existed before anyone explained you to yourself. When I requested it, I wasn't just asking for another piece of paper. I was asking permission to know my own beginning. And when that door opened, the missing pieces finally had somewhere to land. Truth is a strange thing. Sometimes you think getting the answers will settle everything. Like the second you have the document, the names, the facts, the confirmation, the whole nervous system is like, great, mystery solved. But that's not exactly how it works. Sometimes the truth gives you peace and more questions. And sometimes it closes one door and opens 10 emotional closets you were not planning to clean out by Tuesday. Because when you learn something like that, when you learn that there was a lie about your entire life, that someone had told your biological family, just to stop the questions for the teenager, your body has to catch up. And for my biological family to know that I was alive this whole time and find out 40 some years later, that's a lot to take in. I felt anger for that woman who made up the lie. I was angry at her. I felt sadness for my biological mom who was a teenager and didn't even get the truth. I felt a strange kind of grief for something I could not remember but had still lived through. That's very hard to explain. And I also felt tremendous gratitude for the family that raised me. I felt compassion for parts of the story that I never fully understood. Like, I'm sure that there's still more to the story that I will never know. And I felt something else too. I felt relief. Not Hallmark movie relief, more like a breath that had been waiting decades for a place to go. Because the truth did not make everything easier. Nothing was really complicated. It just made it real. And here's the part that people sometimes don't get accurate about stories like this. They think that you have to pick one feeling, that you have to feel gratitude or hurt, that you can love your adoptive parents or you can want to know about your biological family. You can appreciate the life that you were given, or you can question the system that sealed your records. It's not a one or the other. It's all of that. You can be deeply grateful and still grieve for what was hidden, and love the people who raised you and the family that surrounded you and supported you, and still want to know the names of each of the family members of where you came from. You can still have a beautiful life and also deserve the truth. That's not being disloyal. That's being human. And I think That's why one of the reasons why this episode matters, because so many of us are walking around with stories that someone else tried to simplify. I can think of several of those off the top of my head of people that I know. We simplify to make it easier. And I'm saying the adults that maybe say these stories to make things easier for family, the little ones, whatever that may be, thinking that it'll make life simpler to just say this story. But when the truth comes out, it can be hurtful. So don't try to simplify the story. These are real and meaningful. A divorce story, a grief story, an adoption story, cancer, a family story, or a childhood story. The chapter everyone else wants wrapped up in a sentence because your full truth makes them uncomfortable. Let's stop doing that. Let's not simplify those things. It's not healthy. So when someone asks, tell them what you want to tell them. Don't simplify. And your story doesn't have to shrink to make other people comfortable. Not anymore. So listen, this episode is not about adoption records, or it's not about the Ohio law changing, or my original birth certificate, or one sentence that should have never been said. But it is about the truth. It's about the way a sentence can change and shape a family for decades. It's about how adults sometimes make decisions that children spend the rest of their lives trying to figure out. We all have a right to know of where we began. And it's all about the right to ask and about to know the truth. And about the moment that you realize that the door someone closed was not the end of the story. It was just the part where they stopped telling the truth. And here's the lesson that I hope that I can pass on to you. That you're allowed to want the truth of your own story. Even if someone tells you it shouldn't matter. Even if people think you should be over it. Or that the truth makes people in the room feel uncomfortable. You're allowed to ask and know and also hold gratitude for what you have right now. And you're allowed to say that that was cruel or that that happened and that it's not the end of the story. This is the beginning of me. And you're allowed to stop carrying the silence someone else handed you and you didn't ask for. So the reflection question for today is, what truth in your story still deserves room to breathe? Sit with that one. Not to force an answer or reopen something that you're not ready to open, but to honor the part of you that knows when a door was closed too soon. Because sometimes healing begins when you stop asking, why do I still care? And you start saying, of course I care. That's part of me. Hey, if this episode met you somewhere tender, I am so glad you're here. And if I brought up your own questions about identity or family stories or missing pieces, be gentle with yourself. This kind of truth telling is not small work. So I invite you to go to stepintomyshoes.com. There's books and a still standing method that you can take a quiz. and find out kind of where you are in some of these processes. And there's also meditations and reflection tools and things to help you through some of the tough chapters in life. So until next time, keep telling the truth with care. Keep making room for the parts of your story that were hidden, maybe even sealed by a state law or silenced. And remember, the truth may have been delayed, but that does not mean it's disappeared. Go find it. Hey, I get it. Life changed plans on me, and I'm sure they have on you. And now you're standing there wondering, what comes next? That's exactly why I created the Still Standing courses. These are practical, honest courses for women navigating change, loss, identity shift, in a chapter that she didn't volunteer to live through. You'll get real tools and guided exercises and support you need to move forward without rushing, faking it, or pretending that you're fine. You can start today. Just click on stepintomyshoes.com/method-course and get everything that you need to move forward. Stop surviving your life chapter and start moving forward.